Welcome to ShadowLore. Story 1. The Perfect Match Until... I remember the first message he sent me. It was witty, unlike the usual, "Hey, how are you?" type of opener I was so used to. Instead, he wrote something about how my love for dogs was an immediate point of connection, saying, "If you're a dog person, you've already won me over." Simple, but enough to catch my attention. His profile showed a handsome, well-dressed guy with a confident smile, and a few photos of him on hiking trails, with friends, and yes, with a dog. His name was Matt, and the conversation flowed easily. It was surprising, to say the least, since most matches on dating apps either went nowhere or fizzled out after a day or two. But with Matt, it felt different. He was quick to respond, asked questions that went beyond the surface, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. After a week of texting, he suggested meeting up for a drink. I hesitated for a moment. After all, meeting someone from an app always felt like a bit of a gamble. But he seemed safe enough, and I was intrigued. We agreed to meet at a bar downtown, a place I knew well and felt comfortable in. I arrived first and sat by the bar, my nerves kicking in as I waited. 10 minutes passed, then 15, and I was beginning to think he had ghosted me. But just as I was about to text him, the door swung open, and there he was. Matt, in the flesh. He looked even better in person. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a smile that could disarm anyone. We exchanged pleasantries, ordered drinks, and settled into easy conversation. The night flew by, and before I knew it, we had been talking for hours. He was charming, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in my life, which felt refreshing. As we said our goodbyes, he leaned in and kissed me on the cheek, a sweet, subtle gesture that left me wanting more. We made plans to see each other again, and I left the bar with butterflies in my stomach. Over the next few weeks, we met several more times, each date better than the last. Matt seemed perfect. He was attentive, thoughtful, and always knew how to make me laugh. He even introduced me to his friends, who all seemed to adore him. It was like he had no flaws. Too good to be true, as they say. Then, things started to shift. As our relationship progressed, I started noticing little things that felt off. At first, it was just a gut feeling, a sense of unease that I couldn't quite put my finger on. He would sometimes get this distant look in his eyes, like he was somewhere else entirely. I brushed it off as stress from work. After all, he was always busy with his job. Then one night, we were cuddling on the couch watching a movie when his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then quickly locked it and set it aside. "Sorry, it's work," he said, but there was something in his tone that made me suspicious. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something. I tried to dismiss my worries, but the more I pushed them down, the stronger they grew. It all came to a head during one of our dates when I brought up a mutual friend we both knew. "Oh, I haven't talked to them in a while," he said, his tone shifting. There was a slight tremor in his voice that sent alarms ringing in my head. I probed further, asking if he was still in touch, and his demeanor changed completely. He became defensive, saying, "Why do you care about my friends? Are you trying to control me?" I was taken aback. This was not the Matt I knew. The kind, sweet guy who was so understanding seemed to vanish in an instant. We argued briefly before he calmed down and apologized, but the damage was done. That was the first time I felt a crack in our relationship. The following week, things escalated. I got a text from him late one night, asking me to meet him at a new bar he wanted to try. It was strange for him to ask me to meet at such an odd hour, but I agreed. When I arrived, the place was dimly lit and nearly empty. I felt a knot in my stomach as I spotted him sitting in a booth at the back, looking different somehow. He was wearing a black hoodie pulled tight around his face, and he didn't look happy. I slid into the booth across from him, and he didn't even greet me. Instead, he just stared at the table, deep in thought. "What's wrong?" I asked, trying to break the ice. He finally looked up, and I could see the frustration etched across his face. I just had a long day, he muttered. But there's something I need to tell you. My heart raced as he leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. You need to trust me, okay? I'm not the person you think I am. Before I could respond, he pulled out his phone and showed me a text conversation. It was a series of messages between him and a woman I didn't recognize. They were flirting, talking about meeting up, and making plans. My heart sank as I read the words. Who is she? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. That's not what you think, he insisted, his eyes darting around the room. I can explain. I could feel my anger boiling over. Explain what? That you've been talking to someone else behind my back? I shot back, my voice rising. He slammed his hand on the table, drawing the attention of a few patrons nearby. You don't understand. It's complicated. I was trying to protect you. Protect me from what? I snapped back, my heart racing. He hesitated, then leaned back in, looking more serious than ever. I can't tell you everything right now, but please, just trust me. I'm not a bad guy. But that's when I knew something was deeply wrong. My instincts screamed at me to get out of there. I can't do this, I said, pushing back from the table. I need to go. As I stood up to leave, Matt grabbed my wrist. His grip was tighter than it should have been, and there was a strange look in his eyes. You're not going anywhere until I explain, he said, his voice low but intense. The atmosphere in the bar shifted, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. The easygoing, funny guy I had known for weeks was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. I said, "Let me go," I repeated, my voice firmer this time. Reluctantly, he released his grip, but he kept his eyes locked on me, almost daring me to walk out. For a brief moment, I thought about staying, about hearing him out. But something inside me screamed that I was in danger, that I needed to get away from him. I turned and walked out of the bar, my hands shaking as I fumbled for my phone to call a ride. As I stood outside waiting for my car, I glanced back through the bar window. Matt was still sitting there, watching me with an expression that chilled me to the core. He didn't come after me, didn't say another word, but I could feel his eyes burning into me even after I left. I thought that would be the end of it. I blocked his number, deleted the app where we met, and tried to move on. But a few days later, the texts started coming. Unknown numbers, strange messages at all hours of the night. You shouldn't have walked away, one read. I told you I'm not who you think I am. At first, I thought it was just someone messing with me, maybe a prank or a wrong number. But the messages kept coming, each one more unsettling than the last. They knew things about me that no stranger should know. Where I worked, the names of my friends, even details about my apartment. I became paranoid, constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering if Matt was watching me. One night, I came home late from work and found a note taped to my door. "We need to talk. This isn't over." My blood ran cold as I ripped the note off and hurried inside, locking every door and window. I didn't know what to do. Calling the police felt pointless. After all, what could they do about some texts and a note? But deep down, I knew it was him. Matt wasn't just some random guy I met on a dating app. There was something more sinister going on, and I was at the center of it. I tried to lay low after that, avoiding places where we had gone together and changing up my routine. But no matter what I did, the messages kept coming. It felt like he was always one step ahead of me, like he knew exactly where I was and what I was doing. And then, one night, I woke up to the sound of someone at my door. I froze, my heart pounding in my ears as I listened to the quiet click of the doorknob turning. Whoever it was, they were trying to get in. I reached for my phone, my hand shaking as I dialed 911. "Someone's trying to break into my apartment," I whispered, barely able to get the words out. The operator stayed on the line with me, telling me to stay calm and keep quiet. I could hear the faint sound of footsteps outside my door, moving back and forth, like they were waiting for the right moment. And then, just as quickly as it started, the noise stopped. Whoever it was, they were gone. The police arrived a few minutes later, but by then there was no sign of anyone. No fingerprints, no damage to the door, nothing. It was like whoever had been there had vanished into thin air. But I knew it was him. I knew Matt wasn't done with me. The texts stopped after that night, but the fear never went away. I moved to a new city, changed my number, and started over. But I still look over my shoulder every time I walk alone. Because no matter how far I go, I can't shake the feeling that one day, Matt will find me again. Story 2. The dinner date that went wrong. It was a Friday night and I had just finished a long week at work. I was excited for my date with Jake, a guy I met on Tinder. His profile was charming, and his pictures showed him hiking, cooking, and even a few with his dog, which was a big plus in my book. We had exchanged messages for a week, and he had been sweet and attentive, so I was looking forward to our dinner. We agreed to meet at a quaint little restaurant in the city that had great reviews. The ambiance was perfect, dimly lit with a warm vibe that set the mood for a romantic evening. I arrived a few minutes early and sat at our reserved table, anxiously waiting. My heart raced as I imagined how the night would unfold. When Jake walked in, he looked just like his pictures. Tall, with tousled hair and a friendly smile. He greeted me with a hug, and I instantly felt at ease. As we sat down, the conversation flowed effortlessly. We shared stories, laughed at each other's jokes, and even bonded over our love for spicy food. Everything was going great until the waiter brought out our food. Just as we were about to dig in, Jake's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it and frowned, his smile fading for just a moment. "Sorry, it's my sister," he said, quickly texting back. I tried not to think too much of it. Everyone has family obligations, right? But then, as he continued to type, I noticed his fingers trembling slightly, as if he was anxious about whatever he was responding to. After a moment, he set his phone down and looked at me, forcing a smile. "Where were we?" he asked, but I could tell something was off. I brushed it aside and we continued eating, but the tension hung in the air. About halfway through dinner, Jake excused himself to go to the restroom. While he was gone, I couldn't help but glance at his phone, which was still sitting on the table. Curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up, intending just to see what message had caused his earlier shift in mood. To my surprise, there was a string of messages from a contact named Brooke. The texts were flirtatious, filled with emojis and inside jokes that made my stomach turn. One message read, "Can't wait to see you again. We should plan something soon." My heart dropped. Was this some kind of joke? Was he seeing someone else? I quickly put the phone down just as Jake walked back to the table. "Everything okay?" he asked, a hint of nervousness in his voice. I forced a smile, not wanting to ruin the night just yet. "Yeah, all good, just enjoying the food." As the night wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. I wanted to confront him, to demand an explanation for what I had seen. But I also wanted to enjoy the evening. We finished dinner, and he suggested we go for a walk to a nearby park. I reluctantly agreed, hoping that perhaps I was overreacting. Once outside, the air was crisp and refreshing. We walked in silence for a few moments, the tension palpable. Finally, I couldn't hold it in any longer. "So, Jake," I began, "I noticed you were texting a lot tonight. Everything okay?" He hesitated, a flicker of something in his eyes before he replied, "Yeah, just family stuff. You know how it is." "Right," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "And who's Brooke?" His face went pale, and for a moment I thought he might deny it. Instead, he looked away, running a hand through his hair. "Look, it's not what you think. he stammered. She's just a friend. A friend? It didn't look like that, I shot back, my anger rising. You were flirting with her over text. What's going on, Jake? I can explain, he said, his voice strained. We were just hanging out before I met you. It didn't mean anything. I swear, but I was done listening. The trust was broken, and I felt the weight of the evening crashing down on me. I stepped back, putting space between us. I can't do this, I said firmly. I need to go. Just as I turned to leave, I heard him call out to me. Wait, please, don't walk away, I really like you. But his words fell on deaf ears. I walked away, my heart racing, not bothering to look back. I hailed a rideshare car and left him standing in the park, feeling a mixture of anger and sadness. As I settled into the back seat of the car, my phone buzzed with a message. It was from Jake. Please don't leave, we can talk about this. I ignored it, blocking his number on the spot. I wasn't ready to deal with the lies and deceit. I spent the next few weeks trying to forget him, but every time I heard my phone buzz, I felt a rush of anxiety. I knew he might try to reach out again. A few days later, I got a call from an unknown number. My heart raced as I answered, half expecting it to be Jake. Hello? But instead of his voice, I heard a woman's voice on the other end. Is this Mia? Yes, I replied, confusion washing over me. Hi, this is Brooke. I know you don't know me, but I think you need to be careful. My heart sank. Careful about what? Jake, she said, her voice serious. He's not who you think he is. I thought he had moved on, but he keeps trying to reach me, saying he's still interested. I just wanted to warn you. I felt the world spin around me as she continued speaking. He's not a good person. I didn't realize until it was too late. Please, don't let him manipulate you like he did me. Before I could respond, she hung up. I sat in stunned silence, processing everything. Jake wasn't just a guy who ghosted me. He had a pattern, a history of deceit. I felt violated and angry that I had ever let him into my life. From that day forward, I made it a point to be more cautious. I didn't want to close myself off completely, but I knew I had to be careful about who I let in. The online dating world can be exciting, but it also comes with its own set of dangers, and I was determined not to become another statistic. Story 3. The Mysterious Profile. After the disaster that was my last date, I decided to take a break from online dating, but as the weeks passed, I found myself increasingly bored and lonely. So, I reinstalled the dating app, telling myself this time would be different. I'd be cautious, take my time, and trust my instincts. One evening, while scrolling through profiles, I came across a girl named Emily. Her photos were captivating. She had striking blue eyes and a contagious smile. Her bio was short but intriguing, mentioning her love for horror movies and late-night hikes. I decided to swipe right, and to my surprise, we matched almost immediately. Our conversation started off light and playful. Emily was witty, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. We chatted for hours about our favorite horror films, and I felt a connection that I hadn't felt in a long time. A couple of days later, we decided to meet for coffee at a local cafe. When I arrived, my heart raced with excitement and nerves. I spotted her right away, sitting at a corner table, her smile lighting up the room. She looked even better in person. We spent the next few hours talking, laughing, and sharing stories. It felt natural, as if we had known each other for years. As the sun began to set, Emily suggested we go for a walk in the nearby park. The golden light filtered through the trees, casting a warm glow around us. We strolled along the path, and she shared stories of her childhood, punctuated with dark humor that I found refreshing. However, as the evening went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It was little things, like how she seemed to avoid talking about her family or where she grew up. I brushed it off as just her being private, but I kept probing gently, wanting to know more about the person I was beginning to like. As we walked, I noticed a shadowy figure following us from a distance. It made me uneasy, but I tried to ignore it. Emily seemed oblivious, laughing and joking as we walked. After a while, I turned to ask her a question, but my heart dropped when I saw the expression on her face. She was staring at the figure, her smile gone, replaced by a look of pure terror. "What's wrong?" I asked, following her gaze. The figure had stopped walking but was now standing still, just watching us. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Let's go," she said suddenly, grabbing my hand. I didn't argue. The fear in her voice was palpable. We turned and started walking briskly, but the figure began to follow us, keeping a steady distance behind. "Who is that?" I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't know. I've never seen them before," she replied, her voice trembling. I felt a rush of adrenaline as I quickened my pace, hoping to lose whoever was following us. We reached a busier part of the park, and the figure finally fell behind, disappearing into the shadows. I turned to Emily, trying to reassure her. "It's probably nothing. Just some random person," I said, but I could see she was still shaken. "Let's just go back to my car," she suggested, and I nodded in agreement. As we walked to her car, I tried to lighten the mood with jokes, but the tension lingered. When we reached the car, Emily fumbled with her keys, her hands shaking. "I'm so sorry about that. I've never had anything like this happen before," she said, visibly upset. "It's okay," I said, trying to comfort her. "Just breathe." As we drove back, Emily was silent, lost in thought. I wanted to reach out and hold her hand, but I didn't want to overstep. When we finally parked, she turned to me, her expression unreadable. "Can I tell you something?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Of course," I replied, concern flooding through me. "I don't know how to explain this, but that person who was following us, they looked like someone from my past. Someone I thought I was rid of," she said, her voice trembling. "What do you mean?" I asked, heart pounding. "It's complicated. A former friend turned stalker. I didn't think they'd find me again. I moved here to escape them," she explained, tears welling up in her eyes. My heart sank. "Emily, why didn't you tell me sooner? We could have called the police or something." "I didn't want to scare you away," she said, her voice breaking, "but I think they found me." The fear in her eyes gripped me. I wanted to protect her, but I felt helpless. "Let's not panic. We can figure this out together," I said, trying to reassure her. We decided it would be best if I stayed with her for the night. I didn't want her to be alone. As we entered her apartment, she seemed on edge, constantly looking out the window, checking for any sign of the person who had haunted her. As the night wore on, we tried to distract ourselves by watching horror movies, but every creak of the building made her jump. I could see the anxiety building in her, and it broke my heart. Eventually, I suggested we try to get some sleep. She agreed, but I could see the fear in her eyes. I promised to keep watch, sitting on the couch with my phone ready to call for help if needed. Around 2 a.m., I was jolted awake by a loud crash from the kitchen. I shot up, heart racing. "Emily," I called out, but there was no response. I rushed to the kitchen, and my blood ran cold. The back door was wide open, swinging gently in the breeze. Emily was nowhere to be found. Panic surged through me as I called her name, my voice echoing in the silence. Just as I was about to head back to the living room, I heard a faint noise coming from the hallway. I hesitated, fear gripping me, but I couldn't leave her. I crept down the hallway, my heart pounding louder with every step. As I turned the corner, I saw Emily standing at the end of the hallway, staring at something. I approached cautiously, and as I got closer, I realized she was holding her phone. The screen lit up. "Emily, what are you doing?" I whispered, trying to keep my voice calm. She turned to me, her expression a mix of fear and anger. I don't know how, but they found me, she said, pointing down the hallway. They sent me a message. I felt my heart drop. What do you mean? Who? She showed me the message on her phone. It's from a blocked number. They said, "You can't run from your past. I'm coming for you." My blood ran cold. Emily, we need to call the police right now. But as I reached for her phone, the lights flickered, and I heard a faint whisper echo through the hallway. Emily. We both froze, terror coursing through us. I turned to her, and she shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. Just then, the front door burst open, and 2 police officers rushed in, shouting, "Hands up! We got a call about a break-in!" I raised my hands, relief washing over me. "We're okay! We need help!" I shouted, pointing down the hallway. The officers took control, rushing past us. They found no one, but they took our statements and assured us they would patrol the area. As they left, Emily turned to me, her expression shifting. "I'm sorry. I should have told you everything earlier. I didn't want to scare you off." I took her hands in mine. "We'll get through this together. You're not alone anymore." In the days that followed, we worked together to find a solution. Emily contacted a lawyer, and we filed a restraining order against her stalker. She began to open up about her past, sharing more details about the relationship that had turned toxic. Slowly but surely, the fear began to fade, replaced by the strength of our newfound bond. We decided to take things slow and focus on each other. Online dating had brought us together, but it also reminded us of the dangers that lurked in the shadows. In the end, Emily taught me that vulnerability can be a strength, and together, we faced the darkness that once threatened to consume her. As we built our relationship, we became a team, ready to take on whatever challenges life threw our way. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the stories, please like and share. See you in the next video.